So the very first images that we are getting of the Prime Minister, and he is just entering the Ram Temple premises. We are just 20 minutes away for the Abhijit Muhurt, at which the ceremony will start. Joining us, Dr. Pawan K. Verma, author and former Member of Parliament, Sarah Gates, Hindu human rights activist from Australia. Harshvardhan Tripathi, senior journalist, continues with us, as does Vedic scholar Dushyant Sridhar, who is joining us now. Dushyant Sridhar, I want to first start with you. The Prime Minister is here. He is going to be one of the Yajmans. First, can you please explain to our viewers what is the importance of a Yajman? What role does he or she play in the Pran Pratishtha? What will happen now? Dushyant ji.
Namaskaram. So in our Vedic tradition, we have two bhagams. The first three parts of the Vedas, Brahmanam, Aranyakam and Samhita, they constitute the Karma Kandam. And the last part, which is the Upanishad, constitutes the Vedanta Bhagam or Jnana Kandam. In the Karma Kanda, there is plenty of references and detailing of the procedures of how a Havan, a Yajna or a Yaga should be performed. That is when you invoke a Devata, you invoke the blessings of a certain Devata through a Havan, a Yajna or a Yaga. So while a yajna is performed, there has to be a person who takes ownership of it. So whatever be the plus or minus of it, I take. It's like the responsibility center. That sthanam is called as karta, or in many cases that person is referred to as yajaman. Yajaman means the person who takes the ownership, he leads it. Then we have people who conduct the yagam. So there will be a ritvik, there will be an udgata because he has to sing verses of the Samavedam. There will be a supervisor called Brahma. This Brahma's position is different from the Brahma whom we know as doing the Vyashti Srishti. But here the Brahma here indicates the person who supervises the yagam. So these are all positions, like how we take in a IT company, we will have a project manager, programming coder and so on and so forth. So these are all the positions in a yagam. And there could be yajamans and multiple sub-yajamans. I also understand that there will be people from various communities who will be representing this yagam, which is in a way very inclusive to the procedure of the yagam. And as we understand from some of the news sources, our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, will also be one of the Yajaman leading it. So this is absolutely a beautiful position to hold in a yagam, which Modi ji is doing as per the tradition.
Dr. Verma, earlier there were a lot of politics. Some people spoke of how the entire ceremony was taken over by one political party, or it was only about the projection of the Prime Minister. But if you just look at it in a detached way, what do you make of Prime Minister Modi's vow which he took vis-a-vis the Ram Temple and his journey for the Ram Temple over the last 3 decades?
No, I believe that Prime Minister Narendra Modi was a great believer in the building of the Ram Temple, and it is a pratigya that he took, which he has contributed in fulfilling. And to that extent, he is absolutely worthy of congratulations for this event. At the same time, this is not a political party event. This has a result of the consequence of a Supreme Court judgment, and therefore all political parties and people not in political parties are also part of that celebration, which is in many ways a civilizational reclamation of not only Hindu religion but Hindu culture. So at one level, of course, ritual is important. The Brahmanas are largely a manual of priestly ritual, but as important as the Brahmanas are the Aranyakas, and ultimately the Vedanta, which is the end of the Vedas, which is the Upanishads. So in Hinduism there is ritual, but Adi Shankaracharya, the greatest thinker, as I have written in my book, who revived Hinduism, says, na mantro, na tirtham, na vedo, na yagna. Nothing matters. Aham bhojyanam neva bhojyam na bhokta chidananda rupa shivoham shivoham. That ultimate, which is Brahm, is just bliss and awareness, for whose attainment none of all this ritual matters. So we have to reconcile these two aspects of a Virat, a Maulik Soch called Hindu philosophy.
And ultimately it boils down to that, you know, a lot of emphasis was placed over the years, Sarah Gates, about how this is about Hindu triumphalism. People even brought in a caste angle, but the thought that is Hinduism, how do you think today it is going to be embodied and propagated by the Ram Temple?
Well, I believe that everybody who is Hindu all over the world can identify with this momentous historic monument and the significance to the religion rather than just the politics, which is all we seem to hear about. This transcends politics. Every Hindu in Australia is celebrating, almost every Hindu. All of the Hindu temples are celebrating, and I think that's a sure sign of this triumphant feeling, this victory that they feel that they have resurrected something that was suppressed, something that was oppressed by colonialism. And this is certainly a historic moment for all Indigenous peoples because it signifies that colonialism isn't forever and decolonial acts do take place, such as this Pran Pratishtha today. And, you know, I think the court case is, you know, really demonstrates how the mechanisms of how these decolonial legal suits can be won. And that is probably the most challenging matter, I think, for the critics, in that, you know, members of a former colonial class may find that Indigenous peoples hold similar values and similar law among themselves, and that is that the deity itself and the land upon which the deity was born has legal rights of juridical personhood. And we've seen that in New Zealand and in Australia, where rivers have been granted legal personhood. And I think this really challenges the colonial establishment in so many ways, and it scares people because it's not the case that once a mosque, always a mosque. It's not the case that...
Sorry to interrupt you. Dushanji wants to comment. Yes.
Yeah, Padmaja, I am just seeing the visuals on the screen. What is now happening is a process called Sinkalpam, where the priest will ask the Yajaman to pray for the goodwill of his family. And every time we've been noticing Prime Minister Modi ji speak, he says Parivar Jano. So for him, the Parivar happens to be the entire nation, because in Sinkalpam you have to position yourself as per the space and the time. You have to say, in this particular Shukla Paksham, on the Tithi of Dwadashi, in the Nakshatra of Margasirsham, I now do Sinkalpam, hey Bhagavan Rama, please keep the country good. So the process what the Prime Minister is undergoing now is called Sinkalpam. And if you look at the priests, from my understanding, they all belong to a section of the Yajurveda called Shukla Yajurveda. Why Shukla Yajurveda is because when we have references in the Valmiki Ramayanam where Dasharatha had to perform two ceremonies. One, the Yagam called as Ashwamedham, and followed by that was Putrakameshti. In the Ashwamedha Yajna verse, there is a commentator who states that Dasharatha belonged to the clan of Shukla Yajurveda. So the temple authorities have found some good advice and they have employed Shukla Yajurvedic people who were reciting all these days. The Sankalpam is being performed, and now there is Mantra Prokshanam. So when you take waters, for all these 10 days ceremonies were performed, and those waters don't become just normal H2O, it becomes Vedic water, Mantrika Jalam, and then that is Prokshanam. Prokshan says Purusha Suktam, so that is then sprinkled, and that is a part of also the ceremony called Punyaha Vachanam, where you purify the temple, because because during the temple construction, small insects could have died. So a Vastu ceremony will also be conducted where all those sins are washed away, and you seek from Mother Nature, telling her, very sorry for the construction of this temple, we might have killed a few insects, please forgive us. So this Vastu ceremony, Sankalpam, Mantra Prokshanam, all this is a part of now the Purvangam, the rites before the Pran Pratishtha.